say how you relate this to Shah Jahan. We had 5 major Mughal emperors, starting from Babur, then Humayun, then Akbar, and Akbar's son was Jahangir and then Shah Jahan. So you remember Shah Jahan because Shah Jahan is the one who built the Taj Mahal. So Humayun, Shah Jahan's great-grandfather, Humayun, and he was actually the second Mughal emperor. And it is said that Humayun lost this regime to the Afghans. He ran away and took shelter in Persia. With the help of the Persian emperor, only after about 15 years, 14, 15 years, he came back, defeated the Afghans and got back his entire regime in his hands. But he was again very unlucky, only he lived 1 year. And he was once, coming down, descending the steps of his library, that he, heard the call from the caller of the mosque. And soon on hearing the call, the Muslims have to immediately bend on their knees and start praying. He just did that. He didn't know he was halfway on the steps, just imbalanced, fell, and died there on the spot. And then his body was brought not very far from here. That 16th century library called Sher Mandal is not very far. It's in the old fort, close to the zoological gardens. And then his body was transported from there right up here, and he was buried 7 feet below the ground level in a catacomb here. And this tomb was not built then. All of this happened in the 1560s. Well, it was only 7 years, 7 years after that he died and he was buried here, that his beloved wife, Haji Bega Begum, she had gone on to perform Hajj, which is the Islamic pilgrimage, as you know, in Makkah. When she came back, she already had a desire of building this memorial to her husband. So when she came back from there, she brought in those 1,000 Arabs to work here to build this memorial to her husband. And they all stayed back in a little inn, royal inn, which she built there. And you see, as soon as we entered, you saw a nice little gateway on the right. That gateway serves as the entrance to that royal inn where all those 1,000 Arabs stayed. And those Arabs worked on this tomb. The construction started in 1565 and was completed by 1572.
This is the tomb of Humayun. This is the first real example of the Hindu Mughal architecture that actually inspired the Taj Mahal. Not only is Humayun I think the second Mughal emperor buried here, but 126 of his relatives and descendants. Humayun was actually run out of India and spent 5 or 7 years in exile in Persia, and with the help of the Persian emperor returned and took over from the Afghans. Then a year after his victory, while walking out of his library, he heard the sound of the trumpet declaring time for Islamic prayers. He immediately dropped to his knees to pray, and his knees went over the edge of the steps. He fell down the steps and died. 7 years later, his wife had this erected to him. Over here, to what is my left, and a little hard to see, is the tomb of his barber. It is of particular interest that the barber to the emperor was a very, very, very high position, not only providing a shave and a haircut, but wise counsel. And there's an interesting story about the witty man in the court of Humayun and his barber that led the barber to this tomb. Unlike Humayun's tomb, which is the first example of two dome architecture. This is a single dome architecture tomb, and that is not an example of triple dome. Double dome means that one dome is inside the other to help increase the volume of the space. But here is another contradiction of India. Here's a beautiful gateway into this tomb, and then right next to it, if you can see center of the frame, is an amalgam of cell phone towers.